Hello, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Career IQ. I'm your host, Darryl Jackson of Patrice and Associates Recruiting. Today, my co-host, Chef Kinsey, and I are discussing a topic that's crucial for anyone navigating their career journey. We're going to be talking about the importance of work orientations and why they should align with your actual department's onboarding process. We've got some valuable insights to share, so stay with us to boost your career IQ. And let's get to the video. Hello and welcome. I'm Darryl Jackson.
And I'm Chef Kinsey.
Today we're going to be talking about the importance of job orientations or work orientations and how they can either help improve or create some alignment with your employees with them, with onboarding those new employees per se. Chef Kinsey, what are your thoughts today, my friend?
Well, like I told you behind the scenes that I feel like orientations and onboarding are two different things, and I guess I've lost sight of what orientation is, being that onboarding is now part of a process. And I think onboarding is just a real quick, you can probably explain onboarding more than I can, versus people who are just getting hired and just starting a job and that's it. But the orientation part I know is very important. But because it explains your roles, it explains the company, explains your benefits. And when I say benefits, on top of benefits, your incentives to be there and things to keep you there and what they will give you for being a good valued employee, and for working as well as rewards, two different things. But I just wanted to talk briefly about that because I believe that things have changed post-COVID.
Right.
You know, like I said before, we had a lot of people who basically either started their own businesses. I'm not just talking about in culinary, whether they were TV repairmen, whether they were teachers, whether they were dog walkers, whoever they are no longer that. If they couldn't do it for long periods of time during COVID, they've either retired, on their own, or they've left. So the job workforce had to basically was forced to just bring people who wanted jobs and to help them get their companies back up, to get their businesses running. And just, it took a lot of training. It's taking a lot of training, but they've done that. But orientations and the jobs are not the same anymore because of that. I just wanted to touch on that. What do you think about that?
Well, I think for the most part, the orientation is really, you said it, is really to kind of help inform the new employee more about what the company does, their role in the organization. It also gives them an opportunity to talk about the main objectives of why they're there. And, it's like, it's the hype man, the orientation, whoever does the orientation, they're like getting you hyped about the company because they want you to be excited about working for them. And so they have to be very important on who are the people they're choosing to perform or conduct those orientation, because that is the first impression that they get, right? And so we want to make sure
Right.
that, I think a lot of times orientations are changing a little bit because the environment, the work environment has changed a lot, because now a lot of companies are using these different temp agencies and what have you. They're using a lot of different companies, so that there's no need for orientation for temp workers. However, for those that are looking for full-time, part-time work, they still need to go through the ritual, the routine of doing those orientations. I totally agree. One of the things I remember when several orientations I participated in, it gave me a chance to learn about the resources at the company. I can learn about, promotions, potential promotions, avenues. I don't have to stay in one department all my life. I can actually start looking for other avenues, but it also gives me a good resource to kind of build, meaningful relationship with new people who just started the same day I started, but they just happen to be working in a different department. So now I got
Right.
a colleague or someone that I can meet or say hello, and some familiar, a little bit of familiarity with some people. We already have something in common. and we can kind of talk and try to get me over the nervousness of being the new guy on board, if that makes sense.
Right. It does.
So,
And what do you think about onboarding versus orientation? I know onboarding is introducing that paperwork that by law you should know about. You know, but do you believe that in onboarding it should cover some of what will happen in orientation?
well, I think it should be an introduction because I think the true onboarding starts when they get to their department. So, like for instance, you have like let's say a culinary person or who are sous chef or whatever. The introduction is learning about the company itself. But the true onboarding is going to be when you get to your department to start learning what my responsibilities are in that department. Overall, which as an orientation, what services we provide as a unique team. What do we offer to everyone? Look at my internal customers and as well as my external customers. Who do we serve? What to get excited about. Is there an employee picnic? Are there any benefits? All those things are important at the orientation, just to get me excited. Because I want to learn about my product because I feel like as an employee working for a company and I'm onboarding, I feel like you value me if you took out time to teach me more about the company.
Right.
Because I think
Right.
everybody is a salesman. Everybody's a salesman.
Right. I'm just saying in a lot of places the revolving doors.
Yeah.
Just in Philadelphia in the culinary industry. I'm just saying a revolving door where people are going in. You see them 2 weeks later and they're no longer there anymore. They're somewhere else. They're
That
somewhere else.
retention.
And this tends to happen in the culinary industry. It tends to happen.
Yeah.
But it's faster. It's at a faster pace than it's ever been right now. And like I interviewing the interviewer when we did that on episode 3, it
Right.
was one of those things where basically we addressed that where some people just aren't cut out for culinary, and it brings me back to post-COVID. Just took anybody in who had a job cooking or they knew the basics, and they can't take the militant part of this job. In some places it is.
Yeah.
you know we got work to do. It's got to be done, and we don't have much time to do it, and there are people out there depending on us to keep them safe while we're doing it.
Right.
So it takes a shift leader, a militant chef in command, to make sure that those things happen.
Right.
you know and some people just can't take it. They can't mentally do it, and I can't wrap my head around it as to why. It's not that bad, and
Well, it could be just a disconnect though, too, Chef. Let me see if I can explain it this way. A lot of times when you get so hyped about the company by going through orientation, you're excited. But when you get to the department is a letdown because it doesn't align with what was taught in the orientation. And that's
right,
why I think it's very important that whoever is doing the onboarding for the new employee that's coming to the department should also it is very important that they also participate in orientations or attend orientations to see what's being taught and communicated to new employees across the board. And I think that sometimes is a disconnect. You get all hyped up about I'm excited about getting to my department. I'm sitting up here talking with other new employees who are getting ready to go to their department or possibly the same department. We're all excited about going to work. And then we get to the department, then there's attitude change. The leaders are not as um, enthusiastic and full of energy as the same energy that's in orientation, because usually orientation is so full of energy that you're like you can't help but be hyped.
right.
You can't
But
help but be
disappointed
real.
when you're getting to
Exactly. So it's a letdown when I get to my department if the same energy is not met when I get there. So it's a disconnect there. And so that's why it's important that department leaders, managers, and all those who are onboarding people should align their beliefs, and they're also align the culture with what's being taught in orientation. Is very important.
I
I just
agree.
believe that. So
Yeah,
so motivation is one of the things to keep them motivated. You got to keep them motivated when they come on board, right? You don't want them to feel let down. And
you do. I just also believe. I'm going to take Comcast for instance with Flick to say, me personally, I think that the leading chefs do an awesome job when they're hiring someone. If you're hiring one more person to match 20 other people, your job has just become a lot harder because
yeah,
the 20 people are trusting that you're going to pick the right person to mix in with this team. And they rarely fail. They rarely fail at that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But when you get someone in who doesn't want to pick up, 50-pound bag of onions and put them inside of the walk-in because they're still sitting on a pallet, and I didn't come here to do that. You gotta go. You're not a team player.
right.
You
And
know.
and
So
the job description should also they should already know have an idea of what is expected of them when they get to the role. Um,
everybody wants to just come and cook. Now, this is what I'm
well,
talking
that's
about. Everybody
true.
wants to come, no prep. I just want
Well,
to cook.
that's true, but that will probably go back to interviewing. Is the expectation communicated effectively to the person on the front end to truly understand? Because there is an art to interviewing. There's an art to it. I think a lot of times we can't just sit up and say, "Hey, I'm gonna look at these questions. I'm gonna ask you these questions and see what your answer is." But when you ask those questions, they got to be open-ended questions, and then you got to be able to watch their mannerisms, their how they respond, and whether or not it comes across as genuine. Of course, you can't tell if they're, you know, you don't know if they're telling the truth or not, but you can kind of
Right.
pick up on nuances and body language.
So we can go by their resume, right? Which
Yep,
basically
resume.
broke down what they were capable of doing.
Yep,
Number two, we can go by the application that was described of what was needed that you were applying for. That's number
yep,
two. And then we can go to the title of the position you're applying for. If it says cook one, cook two, cook three, cook manager, cook supervisor, if you were already in these positions, because most of the time it was like 2 years, 3 years experience.
right.
So, like you said, some people will lie, but you're aware of what's going on and what your duties are. You are aware that picking up a bag of onions or a box of potatoes may be it is in your job description. If
Yeah,
it's in your way, if you're not the boss and you're asked to do so, it is what it is.
and
I mean,
and it,
this is culinary.
and it could be, that person is not being realistic, and and we're finding a lot of employees or new candidates in the workforce aren't being realistic. And I give
Right.
an example. Everybody's now telling me I don't want to work for anybody. I want to work remotely. Well, there's not that many remote jobs in the world. There's certain jobs that are remote that can be done at home, whether it be sales, whether it be customer service, phone calls, stuff like that. It can also be a lot of times it can be audits, it can be payroll, it can be a number of things like that. Um, but when it comes to customer facing environments, that's not going to be a remote
Right.
job. That's not
Right.
realistic, and so
At all.
I think a lot of times people are looking at what's out there on LinkedIn. They see all these jobs that are listed on LinkedIn, but that job is requires someone with a particular skill set, and that person with that skill set has been doing that a number of years, and so they
Right.
are that may be an opportunity for them to work remote. But there's also remote is not always just sitting up there, just answering a few phone calls. There's probably going to be a lot of cold calling and everything like that as well. So I
Right.
think reality has not set in for a lot of people. The market is changing. People are looking for different jobs. And COVID during that time period changed expectations so much. Whereas they didn't want to go back to work. They just want to stay at home and work. But that's not the case.
Right.
The world is getting back to normal no matter whether they want to, but there will be some jobs that will stay remote and they're not changing. That's not that
Yeah.
those jobs will stay remote forever. Point blank.
And I think a lot of jobs will stay remote with you only having to come into the office 2 to 3 days a week. It's an easy it's a win-win situation for, I guess, the business owner as well. So,
let's
but
look.
you're right.
Well, let's look at why they're staying remote though. From a real estate aspect, they're saving money on real estate costs. They're saving money on electricity in the building. They don't have that building to put air conditioning in that building, whether it be to house 1,000 or several hundred people at a time. Now that cost is carried by that person at home. So now I can drop the expense and still give my customer the same results. And most people who end up working remotely end up working more than they would when they were at work in the first place.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what's happening. I
But you
know
still got
people
to do
like that. They're working harder from home than they were in the office.
exactly, and they still got to do orientation. So whether that orientation is through a virtual platform or whatever that looks like, then that's cool, right? The idea though, at the end of the day, the orientation has to be upbeat. It has to be that is the first impression that they get. It's the introduction. It's to talk about the mission statement, talk about company goals, talk about the culture, and whatever outlines for whatever plans of growth that they're looking for. That's still important, but it's when they get to their department. If there's a disconnect, you're going to end up losing that employee. Turnover will happen
Absolutely.
because it's not real. Because what you sold me, that's what you're doing at orientation. You're selling me on why I want to work at this company. And when I get to this department and it doesn't match up with what you sold me, what do? We think that you lied. And so you lost trust. And now I'm actually going to stay long enough to find me another job. I'm already looking because when I got out of my shift, my first real shift in my department, and it didn't line up with what I'm looking for, and the enthusiasm is not there. You don't look like you just treat me like another person, like another point and click, just another body. And
Right.
and so what happens is when I get off, I'm already thinking to myself, I'm already checking out. I'm looking for another job.
That's it. That's it. And I tell people all the time, you have no room, like in this, because everybody is looking to go to a job and knowing that if they see something that they don't want to do, they can just go through that door and go get another job.
That's true.
Because at this point right now in job, there's people are just still giving out jobs for people that's not qualified for these jobs, and that's why the doors are
Well,
becoming revolving doors too.
and it's funny you say that, Chef, because there's now more jobs open than there are people searching. So people have an opportunity to go and find a job wherever they want to. They can leave this job because they can find another one because there's so many jobs open that they have options. They have real
Yeah,
options. And so here's the thing: if you're an employer and you're in charge, whether you're in a department and you work side by side with human resources, the one thing you need to do is you need to make sure you're selling the same thing that the orientation is selling.
you're on the
Point
same
blank.
page. You're
Point
on the
blank.
same page.
You should be at that orientation seeing what they sell because HR people are like they're selling your department. They're recruiting people to come work for you in your department. And if you don't have that same energy, that same level of enthusiasm, and excitement, and passion for the job, and um, you know, uh, it cannot be seen from those new employees, and they can't feel it, they're gone. They're checking out.
That's it.
You're a salesman.
You know, when I used to interview, the first question was, well, one of the questions was, you know, when I don't see it on the application when it's asked, reason for leaving your last employer. And it may not be a reason that you won't be accepted, that I wouldn't accept you here, but I'd like to know those responses. Was it a manager employee conflict? Was things just not going the way you thought it would go there? And you can ask those questions. So you not hire you, but that way you can make sure that you make it for a great environment when you come here, that we don't run into that issue. If that's all it was that made you leave the last place, you know what I mean? But a lot of people don't reveal that. Um, you call the manager, there's only certain things that HR could tell you anyway, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So whether, you know, how long the person was there, were they there, and that's it. This typically it, not what they did and how they, you know, it doesn't give you much of anything. So
True.
they can say they just wanted to leave and have a change, and what really happened will never be disclosed. So
You said that's a major point there too, Chef, because one of the things is I think sometimes when people leave, the first thing they do is say they left, they couldn't handle it. And they make up in their mind why the person left. And there's a lot to be said about finding out and actually, have an exit interview with those people, find out why did they leave, because you're right. People are leaving departments, but you cannot have an ego so big where you don't want to have the facts on what you could have fixed.
right, absolutely. And if you got the same exact, you're right. You have this. If several people are leaving and they've got the same reasons, you have a chance to fix it, save
Yep.
employees. Because again, sometimes it's great companies with bad management.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the great company just don't realize it's bad management, and they're depending on someone to catch the bad management situation so they can get that part fixed. You
Yep.
know, not necessarily fire you, but retraining for the bad management. So
Yep.
we can get good employees to stay at our good company under good management.
I
So
agree.
it's some things that need to be put in the hat and just juggled around a little bit, and then placed back in their positions and see how it reset, I guess, right?
Well, I'm interested in what other people think in regards to, to that point, because, a lot of times it could be a bad supervisor or manager in the area that's basically comes across as an authoritarian, someone that's a dictator in the department, who doesn't come across as friendly or whatever the case may be. It could be a training process, or it could be lack of resources. Do not have the right equipment to get the job done. That creates
Sure.
frustration in the department. Not listening to those employees and understanding what's going on. And so, again, when it comes to orientation, the orientation is selling a department that's doing, a company that's doing what they're supposed to be doing and excited about doing what they're supposed to be doing. The problem is the company providing that department with the resources it needed to help that employee be successful, and that department not, have to just deal with shortcomings or lack of resources, or whatever that may be.
Right.
Okay. And that's unfortunate. And so we have to let go the egos. We have to be humble enough to listen, and we have to be willing to ask hard questions and confront the brutal truths, and then whatever those brutal truths are, make quick sound adjustments, and make sure we address them really fast so we can make sure we retain people. Um,
Right.
but but this was a great episode, Chef. I really appreciate it. Thank you for suggesting that today. I really do. So,
No problem.
well, anything else? I know you didn't cook today, right?
I didn't cook today. I was cooking for others all day. On what's today? Sunday, on the Sunday. So and Saturday yesterday, I felt like I didn't have enough time to really get myself home today and prepare myself.
Well, that's all right. We'll get them on the next one.
Yes.
But I think this was a great segment. We hope that everybody would at least chime in on some of the comments, and that me and Chef would love to kind of see some of the comments so we can respond back to you. If this needs to be discussed a little bit further, then we would love to talk to. I would love to talk to some HR people and ask them about their thoughts in regards to orientations and also the possible disconnect in departments to see if we're right in that regard. Anybody interested, hey, please reach out to Chef Gary and myself, and we'll definitely love to have you on so we can talk about this more in depth. As for now, I'm Darryl Jackson.
And I'm Chef Gary Kinsey.
And we thank you guys for tuning in for another segment. And we hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much. Hey, before you go, I need your help in growing this channel. If you enjoyed the video today and what you heard the contents of, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And also comment on some of the topics you'd like to hear in the future. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next video. Have a great one. Bye-bye.